I am Jeff Blankenburg, and joining me today is Emerson Sklar. Emerson, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Awesome. So we're going to get to all the cool stuff I want to talk to you about in just a second, but I have a couple of things that I want to share with the folks that are watching. So the first one is you might notice that I'm not in my normal place. That happens from time to time, and I always like to make sure that everybody's aware that this is not where I live. I don't have a giant gorilla painting on a wall in my home. I'm actually in a hotel room. I'm at an event this week called Code Mash. And Code Mash is one of my favorite developer events. It's held in Sandusky, Ohio, which for most of you, the only time you've heard of Sandusky is if you're a big roller coaster fan or if you've seen the movie Tommy Boy, which is where that takes place. But in either case, it's held at an indoor water park here called the Kalahari, and it's just a fantastic event. I think there's a 1,000 or so people here all ready to learn and teach about all sorts of cool things with software. So that's where I'm at here at Code Mash.
I would say if you're not a big roller coaster fan, you will be after you go to Cedar Point.
Yeah, it is no joke. It is one of the top roller coaster parks in the world. And so if you haven't been, you're missing out. Anyway, you can find out about Code Mash at codemash.org. And I don't know if you knew this, Emerson, but I'm actually going to be, starting yesterday, I have 10 straight days in an indoor water park, which is just insane. But I'm going directly from here to Austin, Texas, to a different Kalahari for an event called That Conference Texas. It's just outside of Austin in Round Rock, and a very similar style event, right? You've got lots of passionate developers coming in from not only the local areas, but also from all over the country, all over the world, to share their knowledge and technology with each other. So I've got a busy 10 days ahead of me, and I doubt that I will even make it to the water park, but who knows? Maybe that's something I need to make happen.
So if we look like a prune on the next office hours, is that why?
Yes. Yeah. For sure. Or if I have some like crazy injury, that's probably also why. So other things I want to talk about before we get started talking with you about CES, we have another tech talk coming up. And so we do a webinar every month. And these webinars are focused on kind of a 30-minute deep dive on a technology or a design concept or something related to building skills. And this January 25th on Wednesday, I think it's going at 1 p.m. Eastern, I think 10 a.m. Pacific. And I actually get to be your host for this one. And so if you guys have ever seen me give a presentation called 10 Things Every Voice App Should Do, I've condensed it down because there's no way I could cover all 10 in an hour. And so we're going to cover the top 5 things every voice app should do. And it's a 30-minute session. You'll be able to see all the details. You can add it to your calendar on the link in the chat. But I hope you guys will check it out. If you haven't had a chance to see that presentation, I think there's some really good tips and tricks for you there that you'll want to think about. Also, I know we get a ton of questions and comments about APL. And so our good friends Karthik and Kai are going to be here again next week to talk with us about APL and answer any of your APL questions that you may have. So if you've got specific APL things that you're not already asking in Slack, I would recommend bringing them to office hours next week. And that's my opportunity. We'll do it early today. If you're not in Slack, you're missing out. We are a few people away from 3,000 people in our Slack community. And so there are people there asking all sorts of questions. I actually had a fun experience. Someone reached out to me directly and said, "Hey, Jeff, I have this problem. What do you think I should do?" And I said, your number one stop should be, don't ask me directly, ask it to the general channel. And I think you're going to find out that you get answers very quickly. And within an instant, they asked their question and 2 people chimed in and said, "Hey, here's the thing you need to know. Here's another thing you might want to think about. This seems like it might be an issue." And I think their problem has been solved as a result of that. So please, 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 office hours is great. And I'm so glad that you're all here. But if you get stuck between Tuesdays, Slack is the place you should go. Anyway, that's my little pitch on Slack. I'll turn that off. And I think that's all the announcements I had. So Emerson, I always like to let people introduce themselves. So can you give me the rundown on your role here at Amazon?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I'm Emerson Sklar, for anyone that I haven't met out in the audience. I'm the principal evangelist for Alexa Enterprise. So I work with teams like the Alexa Custom Assistant, Alexa Smart Properties, Alexa Voice Service and Devices, and then Alexa Voice and Gaming to try and find ways to better engage brands, organizations, companies across the world to leverage Alexa and all of the wonderful technology and devices that we've built for some more business-focused challenges as opposed to some of the consumer-focused ones. fairly new to Amazon, but been in, I guess, been Amazon adjacent for quite some time, and super, super excited both to be on the team and then to actually be here in the office hours.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you and I have known each other for a couple of years, I think. So I was very pleased when I found out that you were going to be joining the team. That was super exciting. So that you came in late summer?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So, well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad everybody gets to know you. And as they have questions about things like custom assistant and some of those other awesome technologies, it's good to know that they have a face they can put with all of that. So I'm glad you're here. Okay. So I did not have the good fortune. I somehow took a week off of travel to go to CES and go to Vegas. The last time I was in Vegas, I got COVID, so I was happy to not rush right back out there. But I'd love to talk with you about CES, what you saw, what you did. I know you and I had a brief conversation yesterday about what your experience was like and some of the things that you got to participate in. So if there's stories or things that we can share with the audience about what you observed or what you saw at other booths, or if there's trends that you saw, or if there was even a couple of cool devices. I'll give a quick example. I was at CES 21, but I ran into a guy. It was a very small booth there, but they had a molecular scanner. It was like a handheld. It was about the size of a taser. And they could scan a pill or a piece of cheese or any other kind of compound, and it could tell you what it was. And so he had the example he used was that he had a real Viagra and a fake Viagra, like a counterfeit one. And he said, I'm going to mix these up behind my back, and I'm going to put them on the table, and you can use my device to figure out which one's the real one. Because it is actually agitating at a molecular level whatever's going on in this compound, and it'll actually tell you, hey, it's some kind of spectroscopy or something, but it's able to tell you what the compound is. And so it was able to differentiate between Swiss and cheddar cheeses and all sorts. Anyway, it was an amazing device that I continue to talk about because I thought it was so cool. They said, I asked him, like, well, what are the like practical applications for something like this? He goes, our biggest customers, imagine you have a big warehouse with drums of fluids, and a label gets removed. How do you know what that fluid is anymore? Like whether it's a lubricant or a whatever. And he goes, so that's been our biggest customers. That happens constantly. They need a way to know what is in the barrel, and then they can relabel it. But that's one of the biggest ways that they use that stuff. Anyway, that's my fun story from a couple of years ago. I would love to hear some of the cool things that you found as you were there. And then I want to get into like what Amazon did, how we did, but if there was anything like that stood out to you that was kind of cool, trends or a device or anything like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, CES was phenomenal, after sort of a reduced showing last year and then being on a hiatus for a number of years. It was certainly back in full swing. I mean, I was there with you in Vegas back in December, and it was packed. Everywhere you went, you could see not just the attendees, but sort of feel the buzz and the excitement in the room, which was pretty exciting. This is the first CES that I've been to where I've been with a company that has a booth. I've always been someone who walks around and sees the exhibits and talks to people. So that was an exciting new experience for me personally. I think I at least felt that there was a shift this year in less sort of sci-fi, theoretical, interesting science projects, and more real tangible products that you could actually see hitting the market and people really using.
Interesting. Can you give me an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So even on the on the automotive side, there were still a number of again pretty sci-fi, futuristic automotive concepts, but Amazon, Google, even Sony with their partnership with Honda had vehicles that are real vehicles, either already in production today or expected to be in production in the near future. One I was personally excited about is Volvo. I'm a big fan of Volvo, and they had the new EX90, which is their to be released in 2024, first all-electric 3-row full-size SUV.
Wow.
Which was was phenomenal to see in person, I guess a year or so in advance. But it did really feel like, like companies came prepared to show not what they're working on for 10 years in the future or 100 years in the future, but things that people can touch, can feel, can interact with, that that they will very likely be able to interact with in their homes or on the go in the near term.
Yeah, I think my wife and I just bought a new car, and she really, really wanted an electric vehicle, but she also wanted a 3-row seat SUV. And as you probably know, having a little one at home, like that's a pretty hard thing to come by these days.
Yeah.
The battery capacity just isn't there, or at least they haven't figured out a way to make the car not weigh 7 billion pounds. So where it's more like a battering ram in any accident. So I think I'm excited to hear that they have cars that they're anticipating being in the public that are that size, that are all electric in the next couple of years. That's great.
Yeah, and then there were still some things that are fascinating pieces of technology that gave CES that sort of cutting edge feel. It was a company that debuted a urine analysis puck that you put in your toilet and analyzes in real time. Analyzes your urine to identify vitamin deficiencies, to identify early onset of things like diabetes.
Wow.
So it wasn't all just the sort of mundane and traditional. There was still that real sense of future tech or of innovation that was present.
Yeah, without getting too gross about that, does it just sit in the bowl?
Just sits in the bowl, yeah, like a toilet bowl cleaner almost. Looks almost exactly like it as well.
Does it have lights? How is it powered? I have 1,000 questions.
It's got to be battery powered. I didn't see a cord, and it is able to identify between different people in your household.
Wow,
which yes, it's fascinating.
No, I think this kind of technology is still super interesting. I got this is a very cheap thing. I bought it on Amazon for a few dollars, but it clips under the seat on your toilet, right? The flippable seat. And when it recognizes there's no one there, it lights the bowl up with LEDs. Like it shines lights just into the bowl. So it looks like this like cauldron of color. And I was trying to mix that idea with what you just described, where like a red light comes on, like, hey, you need to go look at the app. There's some concerns we have for you. I didn't know if something like that was doable there, but if it's battery powered, like I'm so anti-battery anymore, because they wear out. Like I'm all about rechargeable batteries,
sure,
but I just anything I have to put batteries in, I'm always like, oh, I'm not going to replace that battery. Or like we have this garage sensor that we use, and the battery just went dead, and I was like, oh, let me go swap it out. It's probably a couple of AAA's because I haven't replaced it in 6 months. Turns out it's one of those small watch batteries that, of course, I don't have extras of. And so we couldn't remotely open it or close the garage for a few days, which was just annoying, right? Where if everything had some kind of renewable power, it would be a whole lot cooler.
Yeah, I saw. I have Ring obviously had a huge presence at CES, showing off some of their new cameras, new doorbells, integrations with other smart locks. I have one of the battery-powered Ring floodlight cameras in front of my garage, and love that they made the decision to go. It is a proprietary battery capsule that they use, but I have that thing set to so sensitive, and it lasts for weeks and weeks. Takes about a day to fully charge it back up when it runs out. But yeah, the utility of not having to fill up landfills with disposable batteries, being able to know that you get that kind of longevity is fantastic.
For sure. I have multiple Ring cameras around my yard as well, including the Spotlight one and a couple of others. And I ended up going and getting the solar panel that they sell for them. Now I live in Ohio, which is not well known for its solar capabilities, but it's more than enough. And I didn't have to think about that camera for about 2 years. It was fantastic. And it uses the same batteries, right? So you don't change anything about your device. It's just another cable that plugs into the back of the camera, and then the solar power feeds the battery. It's great.
Yeah, I had thought living here in Seattle, I had thought that the solar panel might not be sufficient, but I'll have to give it a try.
No, I will tell you, and I've looked into this. Obviously, I travel between Seattle and Ohio quite often. Seattle has more rainy days. Columbus has more rain.
Oh yeah,
and they're not that different in that way. And so I found that there's more than enough sunlight. Just even daylight with clouds is enough to get it going.
Learn something new on office hours.
Awesome. Awesome. That's the whole point of the show, right? Oh, I have so much more to talk about. Someone prompted in the chat, and we'll get to the chat here in just a second. There's a lot of really good discussions happening. But someone mentioned that it was Benjamin Anderson said that he was using ChatGPT to generate all of his sample utterances for his intents, which I thought was kind of
That's
interesting.
clever.
We provide a bit of an engine for that already, where it'll try to predict based on things that you've already done. And so he did that. And I didn't want to go on this rant yet, but I guess I'll just do it. So when I saw that here in the chat, that was 3 minutes before the broadcast started, I ran over to ChatGPT because one of the things that I'm a big believer in is having multiple ways to say the same thing. And so I took one of the phrases that my skill uses, which is I can only play 5 sound effects at a time due to restrictions. So here's 5 random sound effects. It's from the voice developer skill that I'm building. And I asked ChatGPT, I was like, can you give me 10 different ways to say this? And then I just put my sentence in quotes. And it generated 10 completely unique different sentences that all have the same meaning, which was, I was floored because normally I have to sit back and like hand write a whole bunch of different sentences.
Oh, yeah.
And now I don't have to do that. And that's amazing.
Yeah, I wonder how that overlaps with how how the general population, how lay people would actually speak some of those utterances. That was always one in my days at Applause, my previous company. That was always one of the things that we found great utility from using a crowdsourcing method, was that I, as a voice person or the developer of the particular skill or device, would be sort of narrow-minded or really, really hyper-focused on how we would say it. But then when we cast it out to thousands or tens of thousands of people, that it would be, would be very different. We would find things that sounded odd to us initially, but then, sort of made sense when you would do it.
Yeah, so I just shared it here on the screen. I don't know if you can see that, but this is what I would say to the user. Again, I'm not generating sample utterances. What I'm generating is the speech that my skill uses, and I like to have different ways to say the same thing. And I was blown away. This is pretty fantastic. I mean, I'm not just going to copy and paste this. They need a little massage, but it's better than writing it all myself.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, it's exciting.
I just thought that was super cool. Stop screening. Okay, so the other stuff that I really wanted to get into with you is Amazon's presence at CES. So I know you spent a ton of time at the booth. As best you can, I'd love for you to kind of describe what was there, and for those that were in attendance, what did they get to see and experience?
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, we had tens of thousands of people every single day for the 4 days of CES, which again, for my first time manning a booth at CES was fantastic. We had a 10,000 square foot exhibit for the Alexa experience area. Again, like Amazon Ads, Auto had sort of other areas, but this was the core Amazon Alexa area. 10,000 square feet, sectioned off into little vignettes, and they would either be parts of your daily life or different rooms across the inside or outside of your house that the ambient intelligence of Amazon Alexa and through the relationship that we have and connection with all of our partners, that it could make easier, more convenient, faster, more frustration-free. And across all of the vignettes, that notion of the benefit of ambient intelligence really resonated, or really was repeated kind of in each area. And so when we say, ambient intelligence, to me, it really means like 4 things. It should be proactive, right? We want to get away from a world where I just always have to say, hey, Alexa, do this. We want it to start acting on our behalf. And in fact, today, Alexa does that in a great many instances. Over 80% of routines today are proactively executed as opposed to sort of reactive. So we've got proactive.
That's always a weird statistic to me. I mean, I know it's true, but I don't think most people think of Alexa that way, as being a proactive ambient intelligence, right? They think, oh, it only does stuff when I ask it to. But there is a remarkable amount of proactivity happening.
Yeah, a great example. We showed an integration in the sort of connected kitchen area. Showed an integration between Samsung's really spectacular smart refrigerator So it has the family hub panel on the front, which is a giant built-in LCD screen. It actually has cameras on the inside and uses computer vision to recognize what is inside the refrigerator. You can search for recipes of things that you actually have, that you actually have on hand, which is pretty convenient. And it had both Bixby and Alexa built in,
Nice.
and showed integration with that and the Amazon Dash smart shelves. And so what's cool there is, let's say it knows that you go through 10 pounds of beans and a dozen eggs every week. It can, warn you ahead of time, hey, you're starting to run low on these particular items, but can actually go and proactively reorder the items that it knows you use on a regular basis. And so it enables you with, very, very little effort to automate the purchase of those types of consumable items that your household is burning through.
That's cool. I've always wondered about the cameras in fridges, because I know when I open the fridge, I will often remark to my wife, like, "Hey, where did the butter go? Like, are we out of butter?" And it's there. I just can't see it. Right? It's
Same here.
behind something, or I'm just not paying enough attention to where it lives, or like for whatever reason, right? And so, but if I think about my fridge, right, things are layered in, and there's stuff in the back that I can't even see without moving a couple of things. So it is interesting to think about how cameras might have access to that. Although I guess if they're spread around all four walls, but I'm imagining they're just in the door.
Yeah, I don't know. We actually, it's funny. You could ask it, show me what's inside the fridge, and it shows a picture from the inside of the door facing in. But we tried to look inside the refrigerator, and we could not find any of the cameras. I mean, even being able to see where the perspective of the camera was, we couldn't find where the cameras were. So, yeah, I'm not sure if it has it just in the door, sort of all the way around. But
interesting.
We tried to trick it. Didn't have a whole lot of food on hand in the exhibit, but hiding different fruits and bags of coffee, tried to trick it, and it did a phenomenal job.
Wow, that's very cool. Exciting. There's a talk I've given a few times called The Future of People. And in that talk, I talk about some of the ways that we can solve our refrigeration and running out of products problems. And it's good to hear that some of those things are starting to pay off. Like they're not my unique ideas, but the idea that we can now have our devices looking out for us and proactively saying, like, hey, you're out right now, and I know you're planning on making this for dinner, and you're out of cheese, so I'm just going to order you some cheese because you're going to need it. I think that would be unbelievable.
And that notion of of the devices looking out for us kind of goes into one of the other themes, is that the technology should be accessible as well as intuitive. I guess two of the other themes. So on the accessible side, right? Like we would like everybody to only use Alexa, and we'd like everybody to have millions of Alexa devices in their house. But we want people to get the same benefit from it, whether they have one device or 100 devices. They have one Alexa and they have other voice assistants, other IoT devices. If they are tech people or non-tech people, if they have varying levels of physical or cognitive capability, we want everybody to be able to get that same, extraordinary quality of life benefit that it provides. And we want it to be simple. We want it to, be intuitive enough that our parents, our parents can use it, that somebody who's, never interacted with the device can very easily figure out how to use it for themselves, not necessarily how to use it the way that you and I might.
Right. It's funny how parents have become the stereotype for non-technical.
Yeah. Sorry, mom and dad.
Right. No, I'm the same way. And what's interesting to me is that, I've taught my parents a lot about how this technology works, and, they've got a few things working in their smart home. But I was talking with one of my mom's friends recently when I was home, and she said, "Your mom is a genius. I don't know how she knows how to do all this stuff." And I was like, I'm not sure she does, but she's making it happen. And so I'm really I'm happy that they can make a lot of those things happen without me having to be involved every time. It's great. All right. So is there anything else that really stood out to you? I know, was there any feedback from attendees that you got that were kind of impactful or that left a mark on you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I spoke to, I don't know if I spoke to tens of thousands of people. I certainly spoke to thousands of people while I was there. And I think one of the things that was great to see resonated with them, and then, certainly really resonates with me, is how strongly Amazon has embraced this notion of interoperability. We had more partner devices in the exhibit area than we did first-party Amazon Echo devices, and I think that was intentional to show again that obviously we want like people using Alexa, but we want to be able to provide that unique benefit to people, regardless of which assistant they might choose to talk to or how it might be that they set up their home. And so every day we had hundreds of people coming in being like, oh, I use this device in my home. I use Josh AI microphones, or I use this Shark connected dishwasher, but I had no idea that I could also use it with Alexa. And could I use that and somehow integrate that with my Govee smart lights so that the lights flash when the dishwasher cycle or the washing machine cycle is finished. And that sort of going back to the one thing I saw across the CES floor, this idea of real world utility and benefit as opposed to sort of theoretical and hypothetical. I think that really shone through, really made an impression on folks that visited the exhibit.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited for where things are headed. And if you think about just all of the different places and all of the different ways that Alexa can have an impact in the places that we continue to be, right? It's getting more robust in cars and in our homes and in the appliances in our houses. It's an exciting time, man. And it's weird because I get to have conversations with technologists all the time, whether they're developers or people that are just focused on devices or whatever it may be. And there's often times where I hear people say like, what's the future of Alexa? Like, okay, so I've got a talking device on my counter, but like, what else? And I'm like, what do you mean, what else? Like, there's all of this stuff, right? Yes, you can talk to it, but it's also orchestrating and coordinating all of these things behind the scenes with routines and everything else. So it's exciting. I'm glad to hear that the folks that you were talking to at CES were feeling the same way.
Yeah, we had sort of right in the as soon as you enter in the exhibit area, we had the garage and driveway kind of section of the exhibit. We had the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, which is spectacular, just a beautiful, humongous
a little out of my price range, but it is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's one thing we heard from some folks too.
Yeah,
and so it has.
That was one I wanted to look at, and it's weird. It's Jeep's car. It's called the Wagoneer, but in no
Grand Wagoneer.
Grand Wagoneer. My apologies, but nowhere do they ever use the name Jeep when they advertise it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's weird.
I actually don't even know if even on the exterior of the car, if it said Jeep anywhere.
No, it just says Wagoneer. And being a Jeep Wrangler guy, like I've owned a Jeep Wrangler for a decade, I take offense to that. Like Jeep's a cool name, but that's fine.
So yeah, so the Jeep had it has Alexa built in and Fire TV built in, and what was fascinating, obviously, like. I have a 16-month-old, so she's not doing a whole lot of television watching in the car. She just goes right to sleep. But I remember as being a kid and playing on the Game Gear or just bugging my parents as we would drive. Obviously, there is utility there for a child to be able to watch cartoons at home. They get in the car on the way to school or on the way to a road trip, and they have their own personalized Fire TV experience that they can pick up right where they left off, and it is, exactly the same experience that they would have at their home. Same with a parent; they can be listening to a podcast and jump in. But where it becomes really neat, and this was something that a number of attendees lamented that they didn't have an easy way, except for the app on their phone, didn't have an easy way to do, is that everybody I think has had an experience where you start driving, you're like, oh, I turn the lights off. Did I lock my front door? Did I arm the Ring cameras? And you could do that on the Alexa app on your phone, but you can do it directly, natively in the car. Again, having that same seamless connection to the broader Alexa ecosystem that you rely on in your home today.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, it sounds like CES was a success. Sounds like there was a lot of fun to be had, but certainly a lot of good feedback and cool devices. And I'm sure we'll hear more rolling thunder as as time progresses and we create new things. But was there any last thoughts or anything you had about CES as a whole? We have a bunch of good conversations here in chat, and I want to make sure we put a bow on this before I start getting into folks' questions.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say, a lot of, well, for the developers out there, one thing that other developers at CES and device manufacturers, one huge point of excitement or interest was around Matter. So, Amazon has announced Matter support on a ton of the existing Echo devices, currently Matter over Wi-Fi and soon to be Matter over Thread as well. And that is certainly something that, that consumers in the know are asking about and wondering about. How will Alexa be able to fit into the ecosystem? It is absolutely something that every electronic and device manufacturer is front of mind for each of them. So considering if you do work on any kind of smart home products, or if your skill interacts in that ecosystem, figuring out how it is that you could bring a simpler, more interoperable across assistance experience to people who use devices that support Matter would be a recommendation I would give.
Got it. Yeah, I think Matter is going to be a very big consumer deal probably later this year. Like once we're at a point now where I think you'll start to see devices emerge later this year and like actually hit the market that support this kind of protocols. So it's going to be great. Did I lose you?
Oh yeah, froze there for a second. Yeah. No, it really was amazing how, I mean, we had maybe 24 either currently Matter supported or soon to be Matter supported smart home devices in the exhibit, and people wanted to know exactly where those devices were, how it is not only did they actually work with Alexa, but how they work with other assistants, what it means for an individual who has one of the Eero mesh Wi-Fi routers that then turns all their Echo Dots across the house into Wi-Fi extenders, or what it means for somebody who has one Echo device and kind of a traditional router. So huge amount of excitement across the show.
Awesome. I will tell you, I turned on the Eero Echo Dot Wi-Fi extender stuff, and my signal was always pretty good, but I've like 110% full coverage in my house now, where there used to be little pockets in the corners on the edges of the house where sometimes it would be a little suspicious. Now it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think I am due for a Wi-Fi upgrade sometime this year. So I'll have to stay.
I had an early Eero system, and I felt like it just stopped working. And then I went and got a whole Nighthawk mesh system.
Yeah,
and it was good. But then I had the same kind of issue where everything just kind of faded, and eventually I had no signal and everything was pretty slow. And so I said, this is silly. I'm just going to go back to Eero. So I went and got the whole new Eero Pro setup, and it has been just night and day. It's been so good.
And we're just past Christmas. Hopefully Santa's listening for next December.
Right. Yeah, Santa, please take care of that for us. Okay, so let's get into some of the questions. If anything else pops into your head, by the way, as we're talking about this stuff, or you're like, oh, by the way, please feel free to chime in. And I'm sure there are some questions here from folks. I'm jumping a little ahead, but Habuma said, hey, is there anyone in office hours other than Jeff and myself who are at CodeMesh? So Habuma is here. He and I are going to get together a little later, maybe play some board games or something. But it would be great to meet some of you folks in person. So if anybody else is here in office hours, but also at CodeMesh, please find us. It would be great to meet people in person. It's half the reason I do this. Okay, now getting back up to the top, Drew Cosgrove is having an issue where he's failing certification because he's getting a "sorry, I'm having trouble, please try in a little while" message from within the Amazon purchase flow when he's submitting an ISP by action. And so, Drew, I don't know that I'm going to be able to solve this one over the air, but I would be happy to take a look. ISP is definitely one of my specialties. my initial suspicion, and I only say this because this has happened to me, is that I am working on my code, I'm making all my changes, and I create a new ISP file in my local debugging environment, but I forget to upload it, or I forget to create that product in the developer console, which you can just do by deploying everything. And so then I run my code and I discover it doesn't know what that product is, and it's because I haven't uploaded. Now, I'm not accusing you of making that silly mistake. I'm just saying that is one simple explanation for what might be happening there. If you said it's only happening with one specific product, but it is working for others and within other skills. But if you don't mind, I would love for you to send me something on Slack or an email or whatever, and I'd be happy to take a look and see, if there's anything in your code. I suspect that everybody would be freaking out if it was a system-wide issue where ISPs are just down or something like that. But I haven't heard that kind of outrage yet. So that makes me feel like maybe there's a tweak we can make to something that's happening in your code, or maybe there's just a silly mistake. I've made thousands of those in my lifetime. So this is also my email address. So if you want to drop me a message there, we can have that conversation. But start in Slack. That's obviously the most interactive and easy way to do this. Okay, coming back to the chat. Brian Tarbox has an interesting question, and this is primarily for my good friend Tamsin behind the scenes attention. But he wants a guest speaker on how Alexa makes its decisions. What I think Brian is asking for is not just how does Alexa make her initial decisions, but also how does the black box work a little bit. I think that might be an interesting conversation to have, is when a user has an utterance and it goes into the device and the recording is made and it's sent off to the cloud, and then the Alexa service makes a bunch of decisions. I wonder if we have some folks that we could get on here to kind of talk about that with us. Now, obviously, it's not going to be in depth. We're not going to be looking at algorithms or AI models, but I think we could at least get some understanding of how some of those decisions are made. And I know, Brian, you will not fail me in having some very pointed questions about how those things work, or what specific issues you're running into, or how do I find this thing. I know Brian talked the other day about how if you if he was saying, like, please do X, and then Alexa says, here is Y, and he goes, no, that's wrong. Like, he was correcting it, that, like, no, that's not what I wanted you to do. And his comment in Slack yesterday was, I can do that 100 times and Alexa will never learn that that's wrong. And it feels like, shouldn't it recognize, if I keep correcting it, that at some point, even if it's with lots of training, that at some point it should learn. I don't know if those mechanisms are built in place, but I can certainly understand why it feels like it should. So I think that would be not only some good feedback for those teams, but also an interesting conversation for all of you to kind of get to see under the covers a little bit. So Brian, I will take that as a note and we'll see what we can come up with.
There is a fantastic, it is from, I think, Alexa Live 4 years ago. I'll see if I can find in the background, find the link to the video. It's a great talk that some of the PMs did about, within a skill, how Alexa determines which intents to route to, and some of the, again, they don't go into the algorithmic input, but some of the decision-making criteria that I at least have found super helpful in both trying to troubleshoot some of those issues and then in designing a successful interaction model from the ground up.
Yeah, that would be good if you can track that down. That would be great. This is another question for you, Emerson. Habuma also asked, who is responsible for changing the batteries on that toilet bowl thing? I don't want that job.
Yeah, I don't want that job either.
No. I mean, we do, we have two kids that are now 14 and 18, but early on, we realized that it was handy to have a small box of rubber gloves in most bathrooms. Not just for the cleaning that can sometimes be necessary with little kids, especially if you have a little boy, but what we found is that also, like, when they're throwing up and stuff, you don't have to get that stuff on you. A pair of rubber gloves goes a long way. But
I wonder if that's a service that the company could offer, is not just the device and whatever subscription goes behind it, but also subscription to come and
I mean, there's
occasionally.
There's been an uptick in companies that will come and clean up your backyard after your dog. So it feels like maybe they could partner up with all of those companies to come in and change out your stuff in your house. Those services also do litter boxes. They provide you with a brand new one every week. and then they just pick up the old one and take it away. And so you just leave it out on your porch, and then you get the new one, and it's like sealed. So then you just peel the thing off and set it down, and you're good to go. It would not work in my house, and I will tell this story in a future episode. But we tend to have a lot of kittens in our house. We foster kittens from time to time, and I'm doing a full renovation of the area in our basement that we use for kittens. And so it's this whole brand new, like unbelievably nice room just to have kittens live in for 6 weeks at a time or whatever. So I'll get some photos together and I can share the nonsense that we're putting into this room. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
Not going to build in an Alexa powered automatic kitty litter scooper.
No, the kitty, honestly, the cat litter scoopers that I found, and there are some voice enabled ones, but there's also just some robotic automated ones, is they're gigantic and they're very expensive. And for the minimal amount of work that is required to keep up with it, the cost will never justify, at least for us, what's necessary. No, but we did, we will have cameras in the rooms so that you can monitor what's going on there even when you're not in the room. There's going to be some in-floor heating so that the cats have like a warm place to lay, because it's in a cold basement, right? So it's a way to keep them a little bit warmer. We have, and this will be part of it too. It was in a room that was originally a sports bar for my basement, and I built it when I was 24 years old. And I thought, yeah, sports bar in my basement, I'll have people over all the time. It got used 4 times. It got used 4 times in 20 years. And so my wife was like, I don't think we need the sports bar in the basement. And I was like, you're right. Because we were using the area around the bar as the kitten space, because it had like a vinyl flooring down there. And so we ripped the whole bar out and all that stuff. But as part of the bar, there was a hole in the front that I had trimmed out and cut out so that our actual cats, our adult cats that are actually ours, could travel back to what is the back room of our basement where their litter boxes live. So when we redid this room, we still needed a way for them to travel to this back room. And so I built a new hole, and it's got this whole box contraption that fits in there that's removable. So if they want to go in and see the kittens, they can when we want them to. But I lined the whole thing with LEDs. And so they've got like this glowing like Willy Wonka tunnel now that they walk through to get to the back room of our basement, which is kind of crazy and psychedelic that they've got all these lights and whatever. My cats have LEDs. It's stupid. Anyway.
With the bar removed, the cats are also probably slurring their words a little less.
Yes. Yeah, they're far less drunk. It's really it's a dry January for them too.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the seriousness. I have Adam on LinkedIn said, I'm trying to create a new skill for a flash briefing. I'd like to record audio content and have Alexa play the recording for the users in the flash briefing. Am I correct in my understanding that I have to set up an HTTPS URL where that audio content will reside that pushes to the skill? I don't know how to code. Is this something that I can set up without that knowledge? Apologies if this is the wrong forum for this question. Well, this is always the right forum, Adam, so don't worry about that. Any kind of beginner question is always welcome here. And I will tell you that, yes, you need an HTTPS URL, but the good news is you don't have to set up a server. You don't have to even get a domain name or any of the other nonsense that goes with that. What I would recommend, quite honestly, if you're building a flash briefing, is to go to AWS, set up an account, and what I would recommend is use the service inside AWS called S3. S3 allows you to store files, and all of those files end up with their own unique HTTPS endpoint. So that's a good starter kit for getting your files hosted on the public internet. By default, they will be hidden from the internet. They're encrypted and privately held. But there's an option on each file where you can go through and say, make this public, and they will warn you, are you sure? Because this will be public to the internet, but you will need to do that. But no coding necessary. And then the only other thing that would even be close to coding is that my understanding is the easiest way to do a flash briefing with audio files is actually by using an RSS feed. RSS is basically a simple data file that is made up of it's called XML if you don't know what XML is, but it's a simple markup language for data. And you should be able to find a really easy example of an RSS file by just searching for that. And so you could host that also in your S3 bucket, and then point your flash briefing skill at that RSS feed, and then it will always play. Then you'll have to edit the file each time that you add a new recording, but it's you would be able to have it start with the newest file and move its way down through the recordings if you wanted it to. So that would be my recommendation. Adam, if you have other questions, you can also hit me up on Slack, and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. But S3 is really, I think, going to be the solution for you there. Okay, let's see. There's a bunch of other good stuff happening in here. Benjamin Anderson's going back to when we were talking about routines. Said routines run my entire home. Between custom skills and routines, I save money on electric bills, more enjoyable car rides with the kids, and a more secure home. Ambient, smart home, thumbs up. Awesome. Dana Viewer said he read that there were a number of booths where matter had to be explained. Like, what is matter and why is it? Why are we so excited about it? Did you find that to be the case?
I think. Well, I think probably because of the audience at CES, the folks that were there were in many cases more tied into some of the intricacies of matter than I or the other Amazonians. But I do think that's Amazon itself, through our support of matter, I think has taken a more proactive or more forward-thinking approach than than many other organizations, and I think that's reflected in the comparatively small number of current matter-supported devices that are publicly available.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I think for most consumers, and I don't know that CES is necessarily a consumer show, even though the word is in the title.
Right.
It is very much a specialized show, but I'm sure there were situations where there are consumers there or people that are just curious about technology and they may not have any idea about what matter is. So that seems possible, but I would guess, as you said, most of the audience that's there probably is well aware of what's going on with matter and why it's important. So that's good to know. Kevy Kev wants to know, is there a way I can play songs in my Amazon Music library from an Alexa skill? When I ask Alexa to play a song, it no longer accesses my music library properly on its own. Yeah, so that is a scoping issue. When you are inside your skill, you are inside your skill. And when you're outside your skill, then you can do all the other stuff that Alexa does. And so if you open your skill and then say, play this song by this artist, it's not going to know what to do because it's living within the scope of your skill. And so in many cases, what you'll see is it will hit your fallback intent if you've implemented that. But you won't know what it is they were trying to do. I actually heard a clever solution. Brian Tarbach shared this, that if a user hits a fallback intent twice in a row, then he assumes they want to get out of the skill. And so he goes, oh, it looks like you're trying to do something else. Goodbye. And then dumps them out to the main experience, which then now they can do the thing that they wanted to do instead of just continuing to yell at it and get angry at his skill. So I think that there are practices like that you could put in place. But I think what you're asking is you actually want to play music. And there are skills that do that. There's a bunch of like song of the day, music quiz kind of skills that are out there. And I think what they're doing instead is they're using a music library API, which I don't know which one they'd be using, but I'm imagining there's many out there that allow you to get access to music that you probably have to pay for separately and do in a way that is more dynamic, right? It's API based rather than when I think about listening to Amazon Music, it's either through something like Alexa or through an app, but I don't have API access to those things. So that is why it's not working in your skill, but I don't have a way, I don't think, to just get access to Amazon Music and allow you to use that music in your skill. So hopefully I've answered both of your questions. Another question for Emerson. Is there an admin tool anywhere where I might be able to see what matter-controlled devices I possess?
That's a great question. Yeah, not that I've seen. Not one that would. Not one that would make it easy to tell what is matter and what's not.
Yeah, hopefully it won't matter. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Hopefully you shouldn't need to notice. Things will just work better, more seamlessly, more cooperatively across more services. But
Yep.
I can see why, especially for the more tech-minded people. I actually want to see. I want to know that it knows, right? And that's a boost of confidence for those things. So, Dana, I would assume no, not today, but that's a great feature request and something that might be interesting to add to our user voice. For those of you that aren't familiar and you're looking for features or capabilities that we don't offer today, user voice is a place that you can go to submit feature requests. And so not just submit them, but you can also see what everybody else has submitted. You can see the things that we've cleared. So, if something has been accepted or we've implemented something, you can see all that stuff there as well. But I would recommend anytime you have an idea for like, hey, I wish Alexa did this, you should go to user voice and add it there. Now, it's not a promise made, right? There's timelines and roadmaps and all sorts of other things that come into play here. But I know that the product team and our developer advocacy group and a number of other teams all take this data very seriously. And so you can go in and look at other things that people have submitted and vote them up. I recommend spending a little time on user voice once in a while, because I think there's a lot of really good feedback in there. And it would be good to get your input on that as well. All right. A. Witter said the same ISP issue was reported by another person in Slack today. If more than one person is experiencing this, then my next step is to go look at our trouble ticketing system and see if there's anything in there that is flagged. But I'll reach out to some ISP PMs here as soon as we're done with office hours and see if we can't track something down. But I hope it's a minor issue. I would hate to see ISPs not working. All right. TradeLast shared an article on Twitch that is an Amazon Science blog post about how Alexa determines what skill can best meet a customer's need. So this probably isn't the direct answer that Brian Tarbox was looking for, but it should give us some insight into how decisions are made and how we pick which skill. But that still doesn't clarify, like, how does it decide first party versus third party? And maybe it uses similar logic. I actually don't know the answer to that. But TradeLast did want to know if you can use the urine detecto puck. We just named the product. Can you use that in a cat box? Gosh, I hope not. That's a thing I'd have to like touch.
Has science gone too far at that point?
It's too much. All right. So Benjamin Anderson on YouTube says, is there a API for security profile creation when creating login with Amazon? An endpoint to reach that allows you to add allowed return URLs to the list. Let's see. I didn't read like a question. Is there an API? So he wants an endpoint to reach that allows you to add allowed return URLs to the list for the security profile. Boy, my suspicion on that one is no. I think that with a lot of our services, they were built to serve their purpose, and oftentimes you just get the web interface. I don't know that there is an API for login with Amazon to, at least for these extensible things, right? To modify and manipulate how endpoints perform. No, I don't know that is the. Let's be honest. I don't know the answer. That is where I should start. And I just realized that I didn't turn our names on. I feel terrible that those weren't on the whole time. But I don't know the answer, but my suspicion is no. So Benjamin, I've flagged your question, and I'll see if I can't dig into that later. Fangelm says, I don't know what this is in reference to. Brian Tarbox, did he say something? Oh, I see. It was they were having a conversation about timers and reminders, and I think I missed Brian's comment, and I can't get back that far now. Maybe I can. Oh, so for ambience, how about if no one acknowledges a reminder or a timer, the system sends them to the last device that detected a person, right? Because devices can recognize when there's someone nearby. I like that. That's a good feature. That feels like a user voice feature. Brian Tarbox, drop that in there. I think that's a good idea. Okay, scrolling. Startup wants to know, how about within the skill, only asking for selected songs from our own collection? I think that if we dig deep into the licensing for almost any music subscription service that you have, it is for your own private use. I would imagine, honestly, if you let's say you have a Spotify subscription or Amazon or Apple or whatever, if you have a subscription to a music service and you start DJing and you're playing that music, I think you're probably in violation of the terms and conditions. That would be my suspicion, because now this is public performance of that music. I would bet you're probably not allowed to do that in an Alexa skill as well. There would probably have to be a specific service that you use that is meant for that kind of distribution of music, because now it's not for your personal use. Now you are playing it for potentially hundreds or thousands of people. And they would want to know how that music is being played, because I'm just extrapolating here, but let's say for just a minute, how am I doing on time? We have 4 minutes. Let's just pretend for a minute that you build a skill that plays music, which you can do. And you use your own personal $15 a month subscription to Spotify, let's say. And all your skill does is let people ask for music. And then they can pick a song and then they can listen to it and they could create playlists and like all of the other stuff. Now you've basically built your own Spotify on top of your $15 subscription. I don't think they would love that. I think they probably would be upset about that.
I wonder if they're talking about if it was their own created or own totally owned music.
Yeah, in that case, and if I'm misunderstanding, I apologize. But yes, if you have your own music all day, do whatever. And even then, you still have to be careful. Taylor Swift is actually a really good example of this. You can have a bunch of really great music that you've created that you do not own. And so you have to go out of your way to make sure that you have the permission. So if you have your own music with the qualification that you haven't signed the rights away to that to anyone else, then yeah, all day you can play your own music. And that's very easy to do. There's an audio player you can feed music through, and it's pretty easy to do. But I would not recommend trying to use, I don't even think there's really a way to use any of your personal music subscriptions that are meant for listening as a way to serve music to your customers. That would be my recommendation. All right, we only have a couple minutes left, and there's only a couple questions, so I'll see if I can't hit this. Brian Tarbuck says, I've hit a strange situation. My multimodal responses are gone, even though my skill is still using them. The DAs are looking at it for me. Wow, they're just gone. I don't know what that means. I think, are you saying that your files are missing or that something in your code has changed? Got it. And then will an Echo Studio, which can act as Zigbee hub, be updated to Matter? Will it be able to handle both Thread and Matter simultaneously? I don't know.
So yes. So right now the Zigbee and Thread over Wi-Fi, yes.
Okay.
So right now we only support Matter over Wi-Fi. Matter over Thread/Zigbee is slated for later this year. I don't know the exact time frame, but yes, that should be seamless or transparent, or I guess it's not transparent. I guess opaque to the user.
Yeah, that should be just some update that comes out and gets pushed to the device. Perfect. All right, we have gotten to the end. I know Brian has just a entire, I can't think of the word, a full slate of issues with some of the things that are going on in his skills. So I'm going to see what I can't do to dig in on some of those with Brian. But I want to thank you first, Emerson, for being here and for taking the time to go to CES and share some of your thoughts and observations for being there. It sounds like it was a great time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was physically exhausting, but energizing at the same time.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely excited for next year.
Glad to hear it. All right, we will be back next week with Karthik and Kai from the APL team. So come equipped to pepper them with some questions. I will be from a different Kalahari hotel room next Tuesday in Texas. So I will see you guys all again next week. And in the meantime, come find us on Slack. We'd love to say hi. All right, take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.